And we are back for the after show, which is something we have not done in many years. Uh, it is basically our like thoughts after the episode, which would be the review. But after sitting on the episode for quite a bit and reading the comments section, we have some more thoughts on the
we,
matter.
we, we,
You
we
have
can
a
call it the wind down. My wife and I used to watch Insecure on the Issa Rae show that was on HBO. They always had an after show afterwards, and they called it the wind down, and it was like two
hmm,
actors like with a glass of wine, like talking about the episode. It was very funny. So I was like, this is our wind down. This is our after show. The wind down.
or like the Talking Dead with the Walking Dead, which somehow is still on the air.
Oh
But
my
yeah,
God. Is it? It just doesn't make any sense to me anymore.
it
It's like
never
it's
ends.
like
So
it's like
AMC is just the Walking Dead channel at this point. They have four spin-off shows.
it's like finding out like Grey's Anatomy is still in the air and has been for like 20 years.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, you're
I
lying. Let me
know
see.
Grey's Anatomy
I'm sorry.
is still on the air. Yeah.
Sorry to the audience. I need to see this. Grey's Anatomy. That is not possible. Wow, it is. 17 years. Grey's Anatomy is almost old enough to drive now, or it is.
Yeah, pretty insane, right? Yeah.
Fuck. Okay. But no, you had a couple of thoughts you wanted to get out. And by the way, real quick before we get
Sure.
on to what you to your list, someone hit me up and they go, they said someone hit me up on Twitter and they're like, Carmine, you're wrong. The casuals are really loving it. I'm like, huh? Yeah, look, Joe Rogan, he really likes it. I'm like, okay, I guess you could say Joe Rogan is a casual. He's not someone who read the books. He doesn't give a fuck about the series that much. But if he's enjoying it, then I guess that's and he's a brain dead idiot. So I guess
Yeah.
that's
I
an
mean,
indication.
it's funny because I was looking at the ratings and they said that 10 million people watched the premiere, which is
Almost 10. It
almost
was like
10.
9.993, something
Yeah.
like that.
Which is a little more than half that watched the finale of Game of Thrones,
Mhm.
um, which some people might say, oh, half of that's a pretty big drop off, and it's like it doesn't matter. Like 10 million is still enormous. Like if House of the Dragon can maintain half of the audience of Game of Thrones, that would be considered a massive success. I don't know if they're going to maintain half, but like still, if they can maintain one third, that's a booming success for HBO.
So I'm glad you bring
Yeah.
this up. So what made HBO very confident in Game of Thrones back during season one, the CEO of HBO at the time had dinner with George R. R. Martin, and this is in the James Hibbard's like behind the scenes book for the show, and the like this whole conversation at dinner between George and the CEO of HBO at the time was basically he was telling George, this is how it normally works. They put out a show, the pilot episode gets a lot of views, and then it goes downhill in views. Game of Thrones has consistently for several episodes kept its views.
Yeah.
And that's why they decided to, renew it for a second season.
Oh.
They renewed it already for a second season, House of the Dragon, before any episodes come out, which I think was kind of a mistake because we don't know if there's going to be a huge drop off for this.
Right.
Because keep in mind, the first three episodes of Thrones were pretty good. We don't know if
Yeah.
that trend is going to continue.
I mean, I think that certainly people are going to tune in for episode 2. I think the first episode created enough buzz. Like, I've just seen so many articles about the C-section scene and little stuff here and there. On fairly large news sites. I'm not talking like, some website called like I'm just making stuff up, The Box or something. I'm talking like I saw an article on I think
The Box.
I think I saw something on Washington Post, like big publications are covering it. So I think it'll do fine. Like I said, even if it only gets a third of Game of Thrones, that's a smashing success. So,
It's crazy to think. I was actually having this conversation with, I think it was either Trey or Nick Hodges. Both Trey and Nick have videos that have reached 1 million views. And it's crazy to think that on some network TVs, they get as much views or maybe slightly less than some shows on like, the CW and NBC and
yeah,
CBS. and but they don't get paid as much as those guys. Like it's just these two
Yeah.
dudes in their room
Hmm.
making like videos on Sony Vegas or Premiere Pro or whatever they use
Right.
are getting like a fraction of the money entire studios and almost about the same amount of views.
Right.
Crazy.
Right. Yeah. When you think about like, yeah, attention and bringing in like, an actual eyes on something. Yeah. It is a weird world like that. Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but then I guess, a view isn't necessarily a view. Like getting a click from a person that's outside of your advertising wheelhouse, is not necessarily as valuable. Um, I had a very good friend who started a website, like when Facebook was coming out, like he was like, hey, you know how like LinkedIn is for business and like Facebook is for like regular people. Like there should be like a social media site for government. And he wanted to quit. He wanted to quit his government job and like start this website. And I told him like, I think that's a bad idea. And he's like,
Yeah, like what the are like shouldn't you guys not be advertised as government like people? Doesn't that cause a lot of
no,
compromise?
no, no. I mean, he was going to quit his job and pursue this dream of him of doing a startup, a social media site for government employees. Because I was just like, there's not that many government employees. Like how many? Like it can't grow that large. Like I don't think it's that good of an idea. I was wrong. Like I gave him this advice. I was like, you've got a nice high-paying government job. Why take this risk? I gave him that
Hmm.
advice, and he did not take my advice. He started his website, and it did really well, and he eventually worked on it for a number of years, sold it. But the reason it did well, and what I wasn't factoring in when I was like, there's not that many government employees. It doesn't matter. There's a certain there's certain products that are marketed to government employees, that people want to like focus on, and so when you have a specific slice demographic, you can make money that way by like, oh, I've got this one group. Um, so I don't know. There's these other things to think about with advertising, but then again, I think the people that watch Trey and Glytis are probably a pretty valuable slice too, because it's probably, single males between 18 and 49 who have like high spending income and all of that. So I don't know. But there's other factors. But yeah, it's a weird world. It's a weird world.
Yeah, but no, so yeah, it got renewed for season two ahead of any other episodes, which I find it very interesting,
Hmm.
but it's not unheard of. I'm also looking here real quick to we also got episode names.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the last episode is a little uh I don't know
So
if these are
yeah,
legit.
okay.
I think
Well,
there
yeah,
were
okay. Tell me the names. Yeah.
so the first episode Heirs of the Dragon, of
Oh
course.
no.
And then the second one is The Rogue Prince.
Okay, so
And
these names are, by the way, taken from Fire and Blood. So like one of the chapter,
not all.
right? But Heirs of the Dragon is a chapter from Fire and Blood, and the Rogue
Right.
Prince is what essentially the second half of Heirs of the Dragon was originally titled when it was first written, and published in Rogues. Um, so yeah, so okay,
The
so
second episode, by the way, that's going to come out is the shortest episode in the entire season
oh, okay.
at 54 minutes. The first one was
Oh,
66 minutes.
okay.
Um, the third episode is Second of His Name.
Oh.
Uh, the fourth is King of the
Well,
Narrow Sea.
let's rewind for a second. Second of his name. Oh, they must mean Aegon.
Hmm.
Okay,
The fourth is King of the Narrow
but
Sea.
he's not king yet, so he's not really second of his name because there's Aegon the Uncrowned. But okay, whatever. Okay. King of the
It's probably one of those moments where Alicent gives birth to Aegon, and maybe like she says to herself quietly,
yeah,
"Aegon,
second of
second
his
of his
name.
name."
Right.
Yeah, whispers it.
Yeah, but
Fourth episode,
he's not really second of his name. But okay, yes. Then
King of the Narrow
King of
Sea.
okay,
That's
that's clearly Daemon's title when he was ruling the Stepstones. Yeah, he called them.
and then fifth episode is We Light the Way.
Oh,
which is House
oh,
Hightower's
House
motto.
motto.
There's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
their words.
It's funny because
Uh,
you have all these other titles and you forget their like real, um, like uh words. You know how like everybody forgets the Lannisters' real words, you know?
which is Hear Me Roar.
Right, but everybody's like, "Oh, it's Lannister pays my debt." Pays. In fact, I think they even used that in the first season of Game of Thrones, like that the fact that people
Yes,
don't
and
really know Lannister's um, words.
the Boltons do it as well. The Boltons, their official words are "our blades are sharp," but their unofficial ones are like "a naked man holds few secrets, a flayed man
Mm,
none."
yeah, it's funny how some of them just like are you kind of remember more. Like the Martells, you just kind of remember more. Unbowed, unbent, unbroken, and what Tyrell's is growing strong, and then obviously Tully's is family duty honor. Um, um, what Aaron's is what high above honor, something like that.
As high as honor,
As
something
high
like
as
that.
honor, yeah. And then of course winter is coming, and yeah, okay. And then what's Baratheon again?
Baratheon is ours is the Fury.
Oh, right. That's a forgettable one. I doubt many people know that one.
I know that one. I
Yeah,
love that
because you love House Baratheon. It's your favorite house. Yeah.
one.
Okay.
So episode 6 is The Princess and the Queen, which is also the other
yes,
story.
of course. Yes.
Episode 7 is Driftmark.
Okay.
8 is The Lord of Tides.
Okay, that's
So
Corlys. Yeah.
Corlys. Episode 9. Now, this is something I've been making a mistake on. Maybe we'll have to see. I keep thinking that through Game of Thrones tradition, the penultimate episode, episode 9, the dreaded episode, is where shit hits the fan. We don't know if that's the case with House of the
You're like,
Dragon.
episode 9, it's called Hard Home. You're like, what? Okay. Like,
Why is that so funny to you? I don't...
just all of a sudden, all the characters head to Hard Home and like. Okay.
I'm gonna be a nerd. Technically, Hard Home is the 8th episode of season 4.
Fuck. Then what are you fucking talking about then? Your fucking ninth episode, dreaded episode thing.
Because episode 9 of season 5 was the burning of Shireen.
I guess, but when I think of like those, like, is Battle of the Bastards, was that episode 8 as well?
That was episode 9.
Ugh. So, see, I think of like the big battle episode that everyone's like, oh yeah. So I think Battle of the Bastards, I think the Castle Black one,
Red Wedding was episode 9.
Battle of Castle Black, is that a ninth episode?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think of the big battle episodes, and since Hard Home was a big battle episode, it feels like that should have been an episode 9.
Well, remember, the dreaded episode... I'm going to be an asshole when I say this, and I've said this before, but I always feel like an asshole even saying it, and I'm sure people have called me for saying it. I feel like no one used that phrase until I started saying it, but fuck it. The dreaded episode, you dread getting to it because something's going to happen that you don't like. Ned dies, the Lannisters win, the Red Wedding, Ygritte dies, Shireen burns. That's why I think season 5 is awesome, because 2 dreaded episodes, 8 and 9, and then 6 is... Battle Bastards, and then anyways, okay. Sorry. So yes, episode 8, Lord of Tides. Episode 9, The Green Council.
Oh. Okay.
And then episode 10, this is great. The Black Queen.
Okay.
So they're going with the blacks and the greens.
Yeah,
which...
of course, yeah. Black family, you're eliminated. Yeah. I've told you about that episode of The Amazing Race, right? Yeah.
You did, but I don't think people remember. Or maybe we have new viewers who don't know.
Oh God, yeah. There's a season of The Amazing Race where it was a family season, so the whole all the families are going from place to place, and every time a team is eliminated, they like to have a bunch of gravitas for it, right? And so they're like, Johnson family, you must leave. And so there was one of the families, their surname was Black, and they happened to be black. And so, when they go up, if you clip it, it's just like this black family comes in and they go up to the council because they've come in last, and he's like, "Black family, you must leave," And yeah. I'm sure if you put,
it's not on here.
if you put, go into YouTube and
I
put,
did. It's not here.
oh really? I
Yeah.
put Black Family. Um,
You must leave. It's not here.
I guess, yeah, I guess they never.
What is it? The Amazing Race?
Yeah, Amazing Race.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh well, the Family Edition. I mean, you could probably find the scene within. Like there's people that have done videos about these. Like somebody did a video called "The Amazing Race Family Edition is the worst of all time." I'm sure the scene is in that one, but whatever, it's fine.
Whatever. Yeah, no, so they're gonna do the blacks and the greens, which okay, I would change it to the reds and the black and the fuck. I would change it to the greens and the reds, at least.
Nah, I mean you gotta stay true to the source material. Stay true to the source
Uh,
material.
I mean, I guess, but then at the same time, the Corley's actors, so I guess we can bend the source material just a little bit, right?
I suppose. You know, just go forward, go forward. You know, I actually think on a different reason that the color thing is really annoying because in the Dance of the Dragons, you have the blacks versus the greens. And then when the Blackfire Rebellion comes around, you're talking about the blacks versus the reds. And you'd think that like there's a correlation between Blackfires and blacks, and there's not, And so you've got a Targaryen faction in a war called the Blacks, and they're not related. They're just, it's just the color. It's just a color, that doesn't mean anything outside of the context of that war in opposition to a different color. But
Look, I still think they should have made Corley's an Asian guy, but that's just I'm kidding, I'm kidding. To avoid all this completely, but I'm kidding, of course. But no, those are the episode names, and yeah, okay,
yeah.
interesting. I would not name the episodes this. I would name them something else, but okay. This almost sounds like a fan wrote it.
I mean, they're fairly simple. They just grabbed it from the source material and shoved it in. So I mean, one of them you could have called one a surfeit of rulers or something, and another one.
But yes, episode 2 is the shortest episode at 54 minutes. The
That's
others
not that
are
short. That's not that short. Yeah.
the almost all of them are over 60 minutes, with the exception of episode 2, 3, and 7. Everything else is over 60 minutes. And apparently, according to this graph I see here, by comparison, the first episode of the first season of Game of Thrones was 6 million an episode. Season 8 was 15 million an episode. And the first season of House of the Dragon is 20 million an episode.
Okay, cost-wise? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, adjusted for inflation, though, things are getting in this. Yeah, I mean, okay. But
things are getting expensive out
things are
here,
getting
so
expensive.
to be fair, yeah.
20 million an episode, yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you wanted to talk about a couple of things in regards to the episode.
Yeah, it's been a week, and I've been seeing the different articles and what people are interested in and what people have been talking about with the episode. I answered a few of these questions in my Q&A, but I thought I wanted to hear your opinions on things too. So I want to start by talking about the C-section
Okay.
scene, which by the way, there's a lot of articles and stuff and all the people out there that because it's such a powerful scene. A lot of people saying that they were like a little triggered by the whole thing, because it's so powerful. I can definitely see that. And so like I've actually, when people are kind of saying like, oh, should I watch this show? Like some people warn them like, okay, there's actually a really like disturbing scene in the very first episode. As I went,
first off, trigger warning, really?
Yeah,
Are we there yet?
Well, it is. I could see somebody like, having a real, like, I wouldn't show that to my wife, like so, but yeah, but there's an interesting article. It was originally on slate.com about, C-sections. And I talked about it in my Q&A a bit about how actually in the Middle Ages, there weren't C-sections. or at least if there were, they weren't recorded. Um, which is, and so I went through Ice and Fire, and this is the big embarrassment, because I was like, okay, there's definitely no C-sections in the main story, because that's what I know, right? And I really know the Rogue Prince and Princess and the Queen material really well. So I was just like, okay, I'm pretty confident that there's no C-sections at all in Ice and Fire. And then I put that in the Q&A, and people were like, what? You know, Alyssa Valarian got a C-section with Jocelyn Baratheon. I'm like, fuck, damn it. And I mentioned this to Carmine. I messaged him like, damn it, it's so embarrassing. And he's like, oh yeah, I knew that. Like, I was like, damn it. It's like pre Rogue Prince stuff. Like, is probably like my,
Did you confirm that? Because that could just be a shithead commenter. Did you confirm that, right?
No,
that there is.
I went back to Fire and Blood and like went through it. Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's there. Yeah. So it may be actually. It's so similar that it almost seems like that the scene is based on the Jocelyn Baratheon birth scene. That
Alyssa Valerian dies because of it, right?
Yeah.
Right, I remember because Dreamfire Rhaena threatens Rogar over this whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can bring it up. Where is it? I'm trying to I'm going through my.
You made that person's day, by the way. Because when you say that and the person replies in the comments section, wait, what about? They're probably walking away going, school Preston Jacobs.
Well, it's so with videos, there's a real inequality when it comes to like being right and being wrong. So like we put up videos, and if we're wrong about one little thing, okay. If we're wrong about one little thing, we get a fucking 100 comments talking about how fucking stupid we are.
And and it's not that, it's also people like you put the correction in like a pinned comment. No one reads the pinned comment.
Right. And I put it in the description, and it's like, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
yeah.
Should have done. No one reads the fucking description.
No one reads that. Meanwhile, people can put incorrect stuff all day long in the comments. They could be wrong all day long, and it doesn't matter. So yeah, there's no C-sections in medieval times. And I got also 100 people claiming, no, there definitely was, because Caesar was born from a C-section. It's like, well, first off, one, that's not the Middle Ages. But two, like, it's only like legend that he was a C-section. We have no idea if Caesar was a C-section or not. But we're talking about the Middle Ages, okay? The Middle Ages,
right.
There weren't C-sections. The Slate.com article is pretty good, and they talked to a bunch of academics who actually, there's an entire book that you can find online that I'll link in the description that's about medieval C-sections and Renaissance C-sections. And the main reason that this wasn't the case is, one is that midwives did the birthing. Like, you didn't have a doctor who knew about surgery doing births. Like, birth was kind of considered like woman's realm, and they let midwives mostly deal with it. And so, the midwives didn't have even the ability to pull out a blade and start cutting people. Like, it's just, they don't, it's not the same kind of thing. There weren't doctors with knives there even.
Let alone the literacy rate. Could they even write anything down about it or record it?
Right. And then, it turns out that there were some writings about how to if the baby's stuck and she's going to die, there were stuff about crushing the fetus, or crush it, in order to get it out, to save the mother. That actually, her life took precedent, and even the church had guidance, Thomas Aquinas, put no, the mother comes over the baby. So. Yeah, it's really interesting reading the stuff about the Middle Ages and stuff. But it's, of course, was there not one or two? I don't know. Of course, they weren't recorded, but maybe it's a 1,000-year period, and it's a huge continent. So you're talking about a lot of people, which is also the weird thing about when you start putting stuff in fantasy. and people kind of go, oh, well, should this be in here? Did they do this in the Middle Ages? And it's like, well, the Middle Ages is such a ridiculous term in the first place. Uh, and this Ice and Fire kind of plays with this quite a bit because like all the technology in Ice and Fire, like most of it is post Middle Ages. But like when does the Middle Ages begin? When does it end? Even the term implies that it was a backward time. Because the Middle Ages, the name comes from like in between the classical period and Renaissance period. So you have to fundamentally believe that when you say Middle Ages, that society went backward, and then we were reborn in a Renaissance, which isn't really accurate at all. Like the Middle Ages, like was not really a regression of society. A lot of things progressed. For instance, like agriculture, like the advances in agriculture during the Middle Ages were what feeds the world today. So it was just and weaponry and as well and stuff like that. But it's a little ridiculous to even have the phrase Middle Ages. But even if you accept that this Middle Ages idea exists, it's 1,000 years and a huge continent. So there's all sorts of like technology going on in different places. Like, is Constantinople like, during the year 1300, like, is that medieval? Like compared to like, Scotland, it's just a very different place,
Right.
Yeah. So, but even in Ice and Fire, like George R. R. Martin will throw in things like telescopes, like, like the maesters themselves, like the fact that like men, do childbirth instead of these midwives, or being able to sterilize stuff with wine and knowing about like that kind of stuff is like way late. Like that kind of science is way past the Middle Ages, or like the use of ravenry, which is just insanely advanced, all sorts of different stuff. So like,
So it's advanced, but not enough for them to use muskets and cannons.
right. It's kind of a very anachronistic world, Ice and Fire, and most fantasy is rather anachronistic as well, where like certain things are super advanced and certain things are not, and they're all kind of living side by side next to each other. So yeah, like the medical technology and like where like is way past. Like some of the stuff that they're doing in Ice and Fire is like 20th century knowledge. Like sterilization with like boiled wine and stuff, like that's 20th century knowledge of science, but then other stuff is, in the past. So, yeah, so there's a lot of weird stuff on what we're watching. So like seeing a C-section being performed in Ice and Fire because it's so anachronistic, like I guess you can't complain about it because they do other things that are really weird, like having telescopes, even though they didn't do it in the Middle Ages, like really. So, I don't know. Have you noticed what like have you focused on any other fantasy stuff besides Lord of the Rings, right?
Lord of the Rings, I think. Lord of the Rings is a straight on story. I don't think they go into like intricate details like whether they can do a C-section or sterilization or stuff like that. I think The Witcher. I think The Witcher is straight Middle Ages, though obviously there are magical elements that like make it out of whack. But in terms of what you're saying, I don't think it's as intricately advanced, but not at the same time not advanced as Ice and Fire. And then you have the Elder Scrolls video game series, which you're familiar, right? Like Skyrim. They same thing with Ice and Fire. They seems like medieval times with knights and all that, but magic makes it all wacky. So there's like advanced technologies in certain areas, and then ancient civilizations that had a lot of good stuff, like the dwarves, who are not dwarves, just elves, but underground elves. So yeah, there's other fantasy shows, fantasy series out there. that kind of do the same thing as Ice and Fire. But I think Ice and Fire and George is more detailed about it.
Yeah, and George is also, well, it's funny because he's detailed, but he's also rather ambiguous and abstract. He doesn't like want to describe it too much because he'd probably start getting it wrong, and he probably knows that, so he doesn't like go into it like in too much detail.
But he could also always research it, though, like what you did with the jousting thing.
Yeah, right. Well, the jousting thing is a great example because when you actually like read, so for the Elaine chapters, like I've been doing a whole bunch of research on jousting, and so it's funny reading George's stuff on jousting because he'll like purposely keep certain things really ambiguous. So you don't really know what's going on. Like you don't really know the rules of his tilts in very much detail. So for example, so one thing like with jousting is when you have two horses go at each other to break lances. Sometimes they do it. Sometimes they do a charge, and then after the charge, the participants can stop and then reposition and then start again. And then sometimes they can grab another lance, turn around, and go back for another pass. So, for example, in House of the Dragon, they did the latter case. Like they did their charge, they finished their charge, they wheeled around, they grabbed a second lance, and then they went. They didn't reset back in position and start their next charge. So when you read George's stuff, it's very difficult to determine which they're doing. Like, are they resetting or not? He'll just kind of say like, and then during the second charge, you're like, oh, did they wheel, did they wheel around and immediately go, or did they reset in position? He'll keep it a little vague like that. You won't really tell the rules of the tournament because like tournament rules can also change. Like sometimes jousting tournaments, are you get points for where you hit somebody, and then sometimes it's all about how many lances you break, and then sometimes it's about unhorsing somebody, and it all depends like what's going on. So he just kind of generally talks about lances breaking, and you're like, well, does that mean like somebody hit the shield, or did they break on the body, or how did the lance break, and things like that. Can the battle keep going after an unhorsing, which is also another like rule change as well. This seems to have happened in House of the Dragon. Like Daemon and Kristen Cole chose to battle after being unhorsed, right? Continue their battle until someone yielded, which is certainly like a rule thing that one can have, but it's not necessarily in every competition. So, so George likes to keep these things like abstract and the rules the rules in the Hedge Knight might be different from the rules in the Mystery Knight, which might be different from the Hand's Tourney, which might be different from the Winged Knight's Tourney and things like that. So it's there's a lot of weirdness with like, yeah, do you want to be specific and historically accurate or not? So you said The Witcher was actually like somewhat historically accurate besides the magic?
Kinda. There's it's more dirty and grounded and because you follow Geralt and he's, if anything, a hedge knight kinda,
Yeah.
and monster slayer for hire, and you mostly follow him, and then he gets like rounded up into court intrigue stuff. It's mostly story where there are moments where, like in Ice and Fire, where intricacies of certain things like that get put in there, but it's not focused on as much as George focuses on.
One of the things as well with writing fantasy is a lot of the weaponry that people like doesn't come until the late Middle Ages. And
Like
so
which one?
like I'm talking like crossbows
Oh
and
yeah.
halberds and stuff. And like, um, well, if you're like dealing with like Dark Ages, like it's freaking 600 AD, like you're not going to have all these different types of weapons that are fun and beautiful with like nice heraldry and stuff. It would be a much grittier, dirtier, more basic environment, and perhaps not as fun. So in
But yeah,
fantasy,
but yeah, that's what I was about to say. Because this time period, I personally speaking, I think muskets, and because there were muskets around the Renaissance area, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Muskets, cannons, like I think that kind of ruins a lot of it because these are weapons that could be easily used to like, um, the story would be over very quickly if you could just shoot someone from like a mile away.
yeah,
So like yeah, but even in The Witcher, for example, like certain intricacies are just magical. That's how he goes into it. For example, and you gotta. Witcher 3. There's and for those of you who have played Witcher 3, you know what I'm talking about. The Bloody Baron quest where Geralt says how your daughter, did she have a name? Good, names are powerful seals. And then he goes into like, the magical aspect of putting someone to rest
mm,
or blah 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 blah. Those types of intricacies and complexities and yeah, but not, where magic is involved and where seals are involved and stuff like
yeah.
that. But George, the way he does it, the way you're describing it, you're right. It kind of borders on that, on the different ages, and I think that's fun. I like that.
I mean, that's the musket is the perfect example of that because the musket was like invented in like what it's like the early 1500s, like fairly, and maybe it's not going to be like commonly used or something by a certain time, but there is definitely like muskets around. And yet to have a musket show up in a fantasy setting, everyone would cry foul, right? But like a telescope, um, like even though that's just as ridiculous, right? I'm looking up the telescope invention date. Yeah, telescope is invented a century after the musket, but for people to be using telescopes, that seems okay. Like it's odd how certain items are like, nope, nope, no, cry foul, like no muskets in fantasy, but you want a telescope, okay, that's fine,
I don't think people know that. I think a lot of people think that. I certainly thought this when I was younger that like guns came way later. Like
Oh
telescopes were a
yeah.
thing like from like eons ago. I think like I always thought telescopes were always a thing, even like during around the Viking Age.
Oh,
But you're saying
sure.
it's not.
Or like, people have this image in their mind of Christopher Columbus, like looking out a telescope, like looking for the new world. But no, yeah, no telescopes. So like, these little weird things like that that have screwed with our heads. Like watching all of this fantasy stuff has screwed with our heads, like completely. Because, yeah, a lot of the things that we associate with the Middle Ages, the beautiful heraldry and stuff, like, is late Middle Ages, even Renaissance, like later even, because people were still using that stuff, especially in Eastern Europe. Um, you know, you know, uh, the 1600s, 1700s, even 1800s. It's amazing. But yeah, we just can't think of it. Like, oh, um,
I think the only series I can think of off the top of my head where it's Renaissance and then you have guns and then they go overboard with tanks and shit is Warhammer Fantasy. Warhammer Fantasy has, excuse me, Warhammer Fantasy has, the Renaissance type stuff. You got your swords, your halberds, all that stuff, and then there's a fucking magical tank that will shoot at you and then rock. I'm talking for those of you
yeah.
who may have played. I'm talking about the Warhammer Fantasy games from Total War. There's like a rocket barrage thing. I don't know if that's actually in the tabletop game, but you have that. There's that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Thank Christ, Ice and Fire has none of that because I think it's more tense when it's two people sword fighting instead of gun battling because gun battles can be very boring very quickly.
Yeah. It'll be interesting if anyone, and I'm sure that somebody will write this in the comments, like somebody that's like could really have a historically accurate fantasy story. I mean, besides like the elves and the magic and whatever, like that can be in there, but that like everything technology wise is actually accurate to say the year like 980. You know, they just like pick a day. You know, they pick a day and they're like, I am going to have the weapons and the heraldry and the systems that were in place in this day. Like even I think discussions of feudalism and stuff like that, how government structures worked. These all, you know, these all like depend on the time, you know? So yeah.
It's a lot of research that nobody wants to do.
Nobody wants to do, and that maybe no one cares about either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. That's too bad.
But so the jousting we got to. What else did you want to discuss in regards to the episode? By the way, real quick, while we're on that topic, someone in my comment section said, surprised that Preston did not notice that member of House Bolton turned to the 7 to become a knight, implying that you can only be a knight to joust. Someone else replied to him, you don't have to be a knight to fight an attorney, but of course it helps being trained in knighthood and lance combat. The same person replied back, in the books, only knights are allowed to compete in tourneys. I asked, and another person replied, they let Jory Cassell joust in the hands tourney in the books, and he's not a knight. I brought this to you, and you said...
George is inconsistent. George is inconsistent. So, certainly in the hands tourney, we know of 3 non-knights who are competing. So Thoros of Myr is there, Jory, and the Hound. Those 3 are not knights. And yet, they were allowed to compete. And then, but at the same time, in the Hedge Knight, it's a huge plot point that Dunk wants to compete, and he can't prove that he's a knight, and only knights are allowed to compete. And so he has to and Dunk is secretly not a knight. I mean, it's not proven, but yeah, read between the lines, Dunk's not a knight, and he's got to lie his way into this tourney. And convince people that he is one. So it's George is just not consistent. But then again, it might also just be, well, it's the rules of the tourney. Like tourney to tourney, the rules are going to change. And
that's what I was thinking.
You know, like the hands tourney is to honor a northerner. So wouldn't Robert open it up to everyone? But then again, it sounds like Thoros of Myr has been competing in tourneys all the time. And being an absolute douche in every tourney. Thoros of Myr is a dick in tourneys. But I mean,
what do you mean? What does he do?
He puts wildfire on his sword and it scares all everybody's horses. And
besides that, is he doing anything else? That's
dickish enough. But yeah,
it's not in the rule book. You can't. It's not in the rule book that you can't light your sword on fire.
Freaking dickhead. Okay.
I would imagine that Robert would let anyone in because he cares more about the fun than the important aspect of it. And I'm assuming back, during the Targaryen era when Dunk was trying to get in, it was more about tradition. It was more about just keeping to traditions. And as we saw in House of the Dragon episode 1, tradition is super important, especially to Master of Laws Lionel Strong. But Robert doesn't really care about the tradition. So that's my headcanon. He just wants to have a good time and let anyone who looks strong in.
Right. So I guess, it's like the old joke. What do you find when you stick your hands down an old man's pants? Depends. So
I've never heard this joke. Jesus.
Well, it's a joke. It's a joke. I sometimes tell. Yes.
But no, we got that jousting one out of the way. Did you have anything else?
So it depends. I think it just depends, on the rule, the rules of the tourney. So I suppose some tourneys only accept knights, and then some tourneys accept non-knights. But of course, why would a non-knight be training for something that they can hardly ever participate in? It doesn't really make sense that Jory, who is an adequate jouster, would have wasted his time training in the joust in order to if he was going to be barred from most tourneys in his lifetime, why would he bother? Or the Hound,
What if he wins? He gets a lot of money.
I guess, but there's so few tourneys he can go to. Because unless there's just these non-knight tourneys going on in the north, which maybe there are, But
Well, can't
then
we just have like mystery knights participate?
that's the other weird thing. How do you know the mystery knight is a knight?
I would assume if you can afford chainmail and a horse and all that stuff, fuck it. I mean, that's you came dressed, you came prepared.
I
Like
mean,
some
these are
random peasant couldn't
these
do
are the
that.
contradictions, right? Like the fact that Dunk in the Hedge Knight can't get into attorney because he can't, because of knighthood, and then and then 2 stories later he's in a story called The Mystery Knight. I mean, like, how are you supposed to confirm the knighthood of God? It's just
It sounds like whatever the plot deems
whatever the
can
plot
come
deems.
in
Yeah,
and joust. Fuck.
so things that George plays fast and loose with. But yeah, so do you have to be a knight? Who knows? Who knows? God, it's so ridiculous because at the same time, he'll say things like in Game of Thrones, like, "Oh, there's hardly any knights in the North except there's like Roderick Cassell, like right there," and like who's training everybody, and Bran wants to be a knight, yet knights aren't common in the North, and it's just a lot of weird contradictions.
Bran wanted to be a Kingsguard, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He wanted to be a knight. He wanted to be a Kingsguard. I mean, I guess he would have. I mean, he probably would have. Like, theoretically, like if Roderick Cassell is there as master at arms and he's training everybody, there should be loads of knights at Winterfell because everybody he trains, he should like knight afterwards. Like, why not? You know?
Isn't there like a whole thing you have to do in order to be like a full-fledged knight? Don't you have to stand like guard at a stand vigil and a sept
There's
or some
something to do.
bullshit? Like, isn't there like rules?
There's an anointing of oils or something that people talk about that
Right.
I imagine a septon would do. But there's a sept at Winterfell once Catelyn comes up, so you can do it. But maybe
I don't. Do we know how Jory was? Jory Cassell was knighted.
well, Jory Cassell was not knighted.
No, I'm sorry, not Roderick.
Roderick? No, we have no idea why Roderick was a knight.
Well, do we know how Jorah was, right?
We don't really know why Jorah was either. Like
In the show, which is not book canon, but in the show, Robert knighted him. I don't know if that's going to be the same in the books. Actually, you know what? Is it in the books too? Jorah Mormont.
like that at the Lannisport tourney.
No, in the show, it's season 3. Jorah and Barristan are having a conversation where Jorah tells Barristan he was knighted by Robert after the Battle of Pike in the Greyjoy Rebellion, and it was one of the proudest moments of his life. But all he could think about was how much he had to piss.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like the proudest moment of my life is when I was dubbed in a different religion. Like, like imagine. But, also like Roderick is a knight and yet like he's worked for the Starks his entire life. So it's like,
Oh, here it is.
When did a knight come up and dub you, so.
Here it is. This is a quote from the book. Wait, you said in the book you don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't know. What does it say?
The direct quote from the book, Lord Balon Greyjoy rose in rebellion against the usurper, and Ned Stark called his banners to help his friend Robert. The final battle was on Pike, when Robert's stone throwers opened the breach in King Balon's wall. A priest from Myr was the first man through. I was not far behind. For that, I won my knighthood. So yeah, I'm assuming.
I guess Robert did it. Yeah. Oh, I guess he won his knighthood. I mean, it doesn't say Robert did it, but it sounds like somebody knighted him.
Right. So I'm assuming the way Northerners are knighted is through special actions, but I don't think they can go and knight other people. So if you're a Northman and you're a knight, you must have done something to gain enough respect and recognition from a sovereign lord.
It's very clearly stated in the text that it only takes a knight to make a knight, even though we just talked about how you're supposed to have oils and a sept and all of that. Like they also clearly say over and over that it just takes a knight to make a knight. So you could just be any knight, like can knight.
It could also be like one of those frat boy initiation things where like, oh, you do something insane and cool, you're one of us now.
Yeah,
Fuck the rules.
It's also Dunk had a serious problem though that he's not a knight, but even if he were a knight, like everybody's like, who knighted you? Like, which knight is that? Like, if you're not knighted by somebody significant, and like in a place where other people saw, like people don't trust it.
Mhm.
Like you're not really a knight. No, 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 really I am. Who knighted you? And he's like, Arlen of Pennytree. Who? Which is like the hedge knight,
Fuck is
so
that?
yeah. But I guess Jorah Mormont, like, oh, he's a knight, Um, I, but of course he didn't knight Thoros of Myr. I mean, Thoros of Myr eventually becomes a knight through maybe Beric Dondarrion, but their weird knighthood, because they knight themselves differently. But see, I don't know when. I guess I'm guessing he becomes a knight from Beric Dondarrion. It doesn't say anything about him becoming a knight from the Greyjoy Rebellion, but
Well, like I said, knights are specifically an Andal Southron type
yeah,
of situation. So if you're not from, you're not from the South, not from, the Andal tradition, if you're a Northman or if you're from Essos, you can become a knight, but it's not super official, but it's a title you can hold. Like, for example,
yeah.
how the Queen names knights all the time, but don't mean shit anymore.
Yeah, it's just such a weird thing because, like, in order to be knighted, you have to like say the names of the seven, So it's just odd. It's odd. But then like Gendry claims to be a knight, even though he's a knight in the honor of R'hllor. So no, nothing. No, nothing's very consistent. Nothing's very consistent.
We'll put an asterisk next to
Okay,
these guys.
yeah.
They're a knight with an asterisk right there.
Knights with Aster, yeah. So.
But no, what else from House of the Dragon did you want to discuss briefly?
There was. Do you want to talk about the weirwood? Did we talk about that a little bit? But I did a little more.
We talked about that on the rewatch.
I did a little bit. Oh, right.
And in the rewatch, which I'm sure not everyone has seen, you mentioned how it was probably there since before Aegon came over, because that spot where King's Landing sits was a fishing village.
So I did some more reading on it, and it's one of those things that George wrote that doesn't make any. One of the things that like Westeros geography doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no reason that like before Aegon's conquest, the largest city would be Old Town, when all of the fucking cities to trade with and like the mouth of the Blackwater and the Trident are like these huge rivers. Like there should be huge cities at the mouth of both the Trident and the Blackwater, and then them trading across the Narrow Sea. Like instead, we've got like salt pans, which isn't even that big, and then before King's Landing, a freaking fishing village. Like it just doesn't make any sense at all. And yet Old Town, which isn't even on like the mouth of the Mander, it's like on a much smaller river, is like enormous. It's stupid. The geography of Westeros is stupid, but so it was a fishing village, and it was conquered many, many times by different houses, and the reason that Aegon is able to land on it is that it was supposedly claimed by both Heron the Black and the Lord of the Stormlands, so that it was defended by neither or something. They kind of left it as like a buffer area or something, and so Aegon lands there, and it's just this fishing village, and they set up camp there. But the area, because it was the mouth of the river, was conquered many, many times over the years, which, if you go with that history, it doesn't make sense that there'd be a weirwood there. So, like, but George is very inconsistent about his weirwoods. For instance, House Bracken once owns the mouth of the river, and you'd think that they would specifically burn the weirwoods, knowing like House Bracken being a Faith of the Seven house that hates House Blackwood. You'd think that they would have seen a weirwood and been like, "Fuck it, like I'm gonna burn it." But there it is. You think that they're eventually gonna burn it by the end of the series?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a moment where Cregan comes in and he sees it. So one of my comment section made made a nice comment that I thought was hilarious. He's like, "Yeah, dude, don't you know? Like Cregan actually, the Starks actually gifted that weirwood to them." I'm like, "Really? Where's that in the text?" He goes, I just made it up." It sounds legit though. I'm like, okay,
Maybe they brought like a weirwood sapling and like
a
planted it.
weirwood sapling is the premise of all the weirwoods that they're like super old, extremely old.
Well, not all of them. The one there's a weirwood sapling at Cracklaw Point, and there's a that's like a young weirwood, and then there's a young weirwood growing in the well of the Night Fort. So
Hmm.
that one at the Night Fort would only be about 200 years old.
And that's a
Um,
sapling.
Fair enough. That like they take a long time to grow, but I mean it might have started later. I'm just saying like Alisane is the one that moved the Night's Watch from the Night Fort. So like and so that would have been around 100, a little before 100 AC. So at some point after that, a werewood started growing. So you know there are some young ones. There are some young ones. Hmm. But yeah, anything else? I'm trying to think of some other things that came out of the episode.
Did you notice we didn't have a Master of Whispers?
I mean, it's gonna be so. Laurie Strong, is he the first? I think he's the first Master of Whispers.
Uh, is he?
Yeah. Um.
This is something a lot of people didn't pick up on, but we didn't have a Master of Whispers. Hell, which is weird because when we start Game of Thrones, we don't really have a Master of Ships.
Right.
It was
Um.
Stannis before he vacated.
Yeah, I mean, and the show does different things. Like Lord Commander of the Kingsguard is normally on the small council, and here in the show they put the commander of the City Watch on the small council. But um, no, I'm wrong. I thought Laurie Strong was the first one. I was wrong. Apparently, Maegor the Cruel had a Master of Whisperers as well. Um. So I was wrong about that. So, but Larius eventually becomes the Master of Whispers. But yeah, there's none here on the Small Council.
There's none here on the small council, which is the other thing that's different besides Corley's being Master of Ships, which he's not supposed to
Right.
be at this
And
around
even
this
though even
time.
though Rhyme Redwine was in the room, in the back, like standing there asleep, he did not sit at the table, which a Lord Commander often like at least does in the book. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so that's another thing I've noticed. What else did I notice? I think we've already covered everything on like the four videos we put out on this.
Well, we talked a lot about this episode. I guess people are getting sick of this first episode, maybe.
But no, this one coming up is going to be the shortest one, and yeah, we will see. We will see. The episode 2 and episode 3 is where we separate the men from the boys when we talk about the views. The views on for the episodes will really determine quite a bit because I
Hmm.
also saw in the news that Amazon. The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, how well that does will really determine its streaming future. And yeah, they put $1 billion into that, which all of it is marketing, and they have marketed the shit out of
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
I've seen
and
more stuff
different,
for
different, different audience as well. Like,
right.
you
Well,
know,
people are going to tune in so they can compare the two, of course, but
yeah.
Amazon has marketed this way more than HBO has House of the Dragon, in my personal opinion. But it's $1 billion. I'm assuming all that went to obtaining the license,
Oh
making the
yeah, they said
show.
half. They said half of it went to obtaining the license. Yeah.
Right. Making the show again because they made a good chunk of it and then they like recast some people. Whatever they saw, they didn't like what they saw, so they like redid it. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And then making the show, obtaining the license, the marketing, is like a whole thing into it. So I don't see how they could ever make their money back. They would have to like make so many spin-offs, so many shows to even try to get their money back. Like
Mm-hmm.
Disney didn't make their money back on obtaining Star Wars until like years. I think it was 5 years after the fact. No, not five. almost 10 years after the fact. So they did not break even for a long time.
Mm, mm, mm.
So we'll see how that does, and we'll see how this does, because I want to see more House of the Dragon. Even though I was very lukewarm, not very lukewarm. It's all right, it's fine. On the
Yeah, yeah.
pilot episode, it only gets better from here. So
We can only hope. Just like Game of Thrones. It just kept getting better and better.
and then it didn't.
Well, we'll see how things go. We'll see how things go.
Do you mind if we wrap it up here?
Sounds good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we will see you all next time. Have a good one.